KwaZulu-Natal has now risen to 32. The worst affected areas include Chatsworth, south of Durban, and Pinetown, west of the city. The extent of damage to infrastructure includes flooded and blocked roads. Some buildings have collapsed. Dozens of people have been seriously hurt. Many remain missing. To discuss this further, I'm joined by our reporter, Simphiwe Makhanya, in Durban, in KwaZulu-Natal. Simphiwe, good evening to you. You've been out and about in that area through the day. What have you seen? What's the situation at the moment?
Well, good evening to you, Stephen. Good evening to the viewers at home. Certainly, as you put it, it's been a very busy day here in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. Since early this morning, we woke up to the news that 32 people were killed earlier this morning as a result of heavy rains, which wreaked havoc in some parts of KwaZulu-Natal, in particular the areas like Umlazi as well as Isipingo and Chatsworth. I can tell you also, Stephen, that these heavy rains have not only destroyed the infrastructure of the eThekwini municipality. I'm talking about the issue of houses being wiped away. Some houses have been actually submerged in water as I speak to you now. The disaster teams in KwaZulu-Natal have been dispatched to various provinces to try and ascertain the extent of the damage which has been suffered as a result of this. But I'm now going to introduce my colleague who was on the ground, who visited these affected areas, Minoshni Pile. Minoshni, thank you very much for joining us. I can see you are busy compiling your story there. What did you see today?
Simphiwe, well, we started off our day in Malvern, which is one of the areas that there was the worst hit. We then proceeded later in the day to Westcliff Secondary in Chatsworth. Now, just in these two locations alone, a total of 15 family members lost their lives. And it's been a really, really tragic day, but like I said in one of my earlier crossings, one of the positives that has come out today is the overwhelming amount of community support that's been evident in the low to middle income communities that have been the worst and most hardest hit by the rains. Community members came out literally with spades and gloves, literally, shoveling mounds of rubble and mud, the thick mud that had accumulated overnight. Many community members even pulling bodies out themselves because rescue teams were so inundated with various sites to visit that communities decided we're going to do what we can. Supplies of juice and water and food arriving for rescue teams that were working late into the night, woke up early this morning to resume searches. So I think, that is the positive we can take out of today. Communities have really rallied around the families that have been affected. And, we just recently left the scene in Chatsworth and they're still there doing whatever they can for the family members.
Before we let you go, what are people saying on the ground, those who have been affected by this?
I think people are still in a little bit of shock and they're still anticipating a lot more rain to come tomorrow. The weather services have told us that it's only due to clear from Thursday. So people are bracing themselves. There have been calls from authorities to remain indoors, stay off the roads. And I think to a large extent they are heeding this. We saw a lot of people that did not go to work today, that kept their children away from school. So I think perhaps at least for the next day or so, the concern from residents on the ground will remain until we see the sun come out in its full glory.
Minoshni, I can see you're very busy. Thank you very much for your time and thank you for joining us. Thank you. That was our reporter on the ground, Minoshni Pile, giving us an update of what transpired as she visited those affected areas. I'm now joined by the COGTA spokesperson in KwaZulu-Natal, Mr. Lennox Mabaso, who's going to take us through some of the initiatives that the department has put in place to ensure that they rescue those who still who needs their assistance as well. Mr. Mabaso, thank you very much for your time. In terms of the capacity to intervene in this situation, how ready are you? Do you have enough manpower to address what we are seeing?
Well, as I can indicate to you right now, we've got Minister Dr. Zweli Mkhize, who has just landed, the Minister of COGTA nationally. He is together with the MEC for COGTA, MEC Nomsatu Bengcobe, together with the Mayor of eThekwini and all the councillors, Mayor Zandile Kumete. They are leading the rescue efforts. They've been doing this work since the early hours of this morning. Our disaster teams, had it not been for their heroic efforts, the death toll might actually undermine the work that they've done. But had it not been for their work, the situation would have been worse than what we are seeing right now. So since last night, we have had to respond to these incidents. We have had to go to areas, what I can call is where angels fear to tread, where people have had to risk their lives to save the others. So it's been quite a very difficult situation, but we've been able to evacuate people. By 12 midnight, we were able to evacuate people along the rivers in Umlazi and many other areas. Unfortunately, we have experienced these deaths, over 32. I think the MEC for Kokta, MEC Nomsatu Bengobe, has just announced that the death toll has now reached 32. The information remains fluid, but look, we are mounting a spirited response to this tragedy, and we are mitigating the impact. Our councillors are all over on the ground. War rooms have been set up. They're providing support, and I think we've just alluded to community support. We've seen communities actually, they themselves assisting the disaster teams and participating in various ways, so which is quite very, very, very touching indeed. And we are able to cope, and we have the capacity, and we are doing our best. But unfortunately, Mother Nature is Mother Nature. There is something that we can do as human beings, but there are things that are above us.
These rains, Mr. Mabaso, have also raised the issue of the level of infrastructure, the quality of the infrastructure that we have in this province, especially in urban areas. Some are actually saying that the storm waters are of poor quality. That's why we're having these floods.
Well, look, I think, it's normal that, in situations of this nature, some will look for fingers to point and to blame. But I think this is not time for that. The reality is that what we are seeing is that we are seeing sound structures, multi-million rand houses collapsing. In areas such as Durban North, in affluent areas. The properties that you have seen in Malvern and Umlazi, those were sound structures. It was not even shacks. Yes, there are people in shacks that were affected. There are people in some of the dwellings that were affected. But in some of the structures, these are sound structures. It's not even an issue of a drainage system. It was an issue of a mudslide. The rain was torrential. It was heavy downpours. It was more than average. It led to the ground being muddy, and it led to mudslides, which actually compromised the structural foundations of the houses. And the big buildings and the flats, they all collapsed. So it's not just about issues of drainage systems. There are challenges with that, but they are being addressed. But in this particular one, it's a type of disaster that we're not used to, particularly in these parts of the country, but because in other parts of the world they are very regular. They are induced by climate change. We are receiving beyond normal rainfalls, and they are leading to this situation, and we have to carry on with education and awareness to communities, which is what we have been doing. Even pre this disaster incident, we issued weather warnings. We warned citizens in KZN that we're likely to experience this inclement weather. Okay.
Do we know how many people have still not been accounted for? We now understand that the figure is standing at 32 in terms of the deaths. Missing people, do we know of any?
Well, I can indicate to you that a team of national ministers will be here tomorrow. Dr. Mkhize, Minister of Kokta as well, who also lead the Disaster Management Center nationally, is also here. Indeed, there will be a media briefing tomorrow morning where the ministers will give an update together with the province. I can also indicate that there are still a number of people that are reported missing. As I indicated to you, we are still responding as we speak. Right now, Minister Dr. Mkhize and MEC Nomsatu Bengobe and the Mayor, they are in the area called Ichelimnyama in Pinetown, where we are trying to do everything to make sure that we assist people. We have already had about 6 people reported to have died after a building collapsed on them. So we are mounting indeed a very, very serious and spirited response to mitigate the impact and to return the people's lives to normalcy.
Okay, Mr. Lennox Mabaso from the Kokta department here in KwaZulu-Natal, thank you very much for your time. Basically outlining the situation as it stands on the ground, saying that disaster teams continue to be out and actually provide support to those family victims who have been affected by these heavy rains. It's back to you, Tsepiso and Stephen in Johannesburg.
Simphiwe, thank you very much indeed. Simphiwe Makhanya with our team in Durban. Tsepiso